Hello everybody and welcome to another Magic the Gathering Arena video. In today's video we're going to be breaking down the decks the game starts you off with after you beat the tutorial, go over a few things, and maybe a little tip at the end of the video. Stay tuned. Scar TV. So you've completed the tutorial and notice a few things have unlocked at the bottom of your screen. First off, you have account mastery right here. Click on this bad boy, you unlock a tree. I've kind of been playing around, unlocking some mastery before this video started. Every level you go up, you get one of these orbs of mastery that you can go to this mastery tree. Click on so, take one of those orbs, and unlock, an upgrade for the deck you're currently playing. Or at the end, you unlock a cosmetic card for that deck. And then once you complete two trees that are adjacent to each other, you can unlock a deck that combines the best of both decks. Also, you may have noticed that I created a new account to kind of go off the basics of the game when you first start off, because it's been a minute since I've last played a new account, and I haven't invested any money or anything, so my library is pretty lackluster, so I can't really power my way through the beginning of the game. Well, now that we got that out of the way, let's dive into each deck and go over what they do. So the game starts you off with 5 colors, single colored decks, nothing too fancy, nothing too crazy, that gets the basics of each color right out of the way. First off, we'll do the Alpha Blood deck, which is the black deck here. You double click on it, you can take a look at what's inside. It's a 60 card deck, which kind of breaks down to a couple copies of everything. Some of it has 4 copies, so on and so forth. Game's not going to give you everything right off the bat, but it's going to give you a few things to get you started. The deck's not terrible, it plays pretty smooth. Got this one cast, 2 cost, -2/-2, disfigure, which is good for creature control against your opponents. Knight of the Ebon Legion's a really strong card. Tap 3, Knight of the Ebon Legion gets +3/+3 against Death Touch, which is very good for blocking, and or if something small blocks or big blocks, it will kill it as well as itself. And the other thing too is if an opponent was dealt 4 more life, you get a +1/+1 counter on the Knight, which is actually very, very good, and he becomes pretty big pretty quickly. You get the Vampire of the Dire Moon, 1 cast, 1/1 lifelink Death Touch, which is pretty good because it can chump block a big creature and kill it as well as gain you life. Child of the Night, 2 cast, 2/1 with lifelink. A little bit of life gain in this deck with a little bit of Death Touch. It's a pretty good combo. Next thing you know, you get Sorin's Thirst, which kind of does 2 damage to somebody and then you gain 2 life. This up is a 2/1 as well with a very high cast, but you can, if you have nothing to play, if you have 7 mana lying around, you can make each opponent lose 2 life and you gain 2 life. Bloody Thirsty Aerialist, whenever you gain life, you get a +1/+1 counter on this guy, and he's flying, so that means he can fly over a lot of ground creatures without reach. Murder, pretty straightforward. Tap 3, instant speed, kill your opponent's creatures. This guy here, the Savage Gorger, 3 mana, 1/1. You may be like, wow, he's not the strongest, but he's a flyer, and at the end of your step, if your opponent lost life this turn, you put a +1/+1 counter on him. So what you could do is you could attack your opponent. If they don't block, they take damage. You throw him out before your turn's over. He gets a little +1/+1 counter, and he becomes a 2/2 for 3, and he goes bigger and bigger. And in the beginning, maybe not a lot of decks you play will have flying creatures to block him. Thirsting Bloodlord. This is a vampire deck, so this guy gives other vampires +1/+1, which creates a lot of your other creatures to get bonuses to their attacks, which in turn makes you deal more damage. The Vindictive Vampire, 4 mana for whenever a creature dies, you deal 1 damage to each opponent and you gain 1 life, so a little bit of life gain. Gruesome Menagerie, whenever you cast it for sorcery speed for 5 mana, and you get to bring back a 1 cost creature, a 2 cost creature, and a 3 cost creature, and they all come back to the battlefield. Pretty good if you had to chump a turn before and kill off all to block damage coming in, or if you went for a big attack, got a couple creatures killed, you bring them back at the end of the turn and they're untapped and ready to go. Bola Citadel, you may look at the top card at any time, and you can pay life to play that card rather than pay its mana cost, and if you have 10 non-land permanents on the field, you can make each opponent lose 10 life. Pretty good to finishing out games if you have a lot of things on the field. Gravewalker, 6 cost flyer, return creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. A good way to bring back some of your other creatures that may have died at this point back to the battlefield at doing your opponent's turn right before you're about to go, so they can attack the same turn they're brought back. Meteor Golem, good way to just destroy a non-land permanent. A little expensive for a 3/3, not the best card, but it's okay. And then 25 swans to fill out the deck to make sure that you have enough things to get the game, get through the game. Next thing you know, we'll do the white deck because it's right next to the black deck. This one's the Angelic Army. So this one here is you get the Charmed Stray. Whenever it enters battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control named Charmed Stray. So if you play multiples of these, after the first one, the next one will then gain bonus. This one here, if one of your creatures become blocked or is blocking, you can give a +2/+2 at instant speed, so you can prevent one of your creatures from dying, which is pretty good. Ajani's Pridemate, pretty straightforward. 2 cost, 2/2, which is strong already. And then whenever you gain life, you put a +1/+1 counter on him, so he can become pretty big pretty quick. This Fencing Ace, 1/1 double strike. Double strike is actually really good. Double strike means that when it attacks, it technically hits for double the attack. So it attacks with first strike damage first and then regular combat damage, and first strike damage means it happens before your opponent may have their creature deal damage to it. So if it can get some pretty quick damage pretty fast. Impassioned Orator, 2 cost. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield in your control, you may gain 1 life. Good combo with Ajani's Pridemate. 2 costs, so not too expensive. Moment of Heroism, another pump spell, gives a +2/+2 on lifelink. Pacifism, to make your opponent's creatures not attack or block. Angel of Vitality, if you gain life, gain that much life +1, another good way to gain a lot of life. And then if you have 25 or more life, it has +2/+2. Very, very good for 3 cost. Angelic Reward, enchant creature has +3/+3 and flying. Can give one of your Ajani Pridemates flying, so it can fly right over. Bond of Discipline, tap all creatures opponents control. Creatures you control gain lifelink. A good finisher if your opponent doesn't have really any way to respond, or just to get maybe some easy life gain in. Confront the Assault, cast only if only a creature is attacking you, which means you can play on your opponent's turn, and you get 3/1/1 like blockers, or maybe just you want to set up a flying attack the next turn. Sarah Angel, pretty simple, 5 mana, 4/4 for flying and vigilance. So whenever it attacks, it doesn't actually tap; it stays untapped to be ready for a block. Spiritual Guardian, whenever Spiritual Guardian enters the battlefield, you gain 4 life. Could get a little life gain, maybe if you need it or something. Inspiring Commander, whenever a creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life and draw a card, which is pretty good because a lot of the earlier creatures, maybe late game, when they come in, you gain 1 life and you draw some card advantage, which is always good. Sarah's Guardian, 5/5, Flying Vigilance for 6 mana. Other creatures you control have Vigilance. That means every other creature that you attack with also doesn't tap. Go forward as long as it doesn't die. I guess this deck also plays a Meteor Golem. Same thing, 7 mana. Whenever it enters the battlefield, destroy target non-land permanent that opponent controls. 7 costs for a destroy plus a 3/3 is not the strongest, but it could be one of the things you may want to get rid of after you start getting some cards and trying to figure out what you want to play. Next, move on to Forest. We're just going to move to the left. Also, the other note too is that I've only played with like the black deck and the red deck, so I don't have everything unlocked that you would have by the end of the tree to have all the unlocks. So some of the stuff may change the more you play a certain color. So green's pretty straightforward. It giant growth, give a +3/+3, instant speed, make one of your creatures attack stronger. This guy is a 2/2 for 2 green. When it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter, so it's a 3/3 for 2, and you can remove a +1/+1, and it gains hexproof, so your opponents can't actually target it with spells, which is good, I guess. If you have like a giant growth on it, you can remove a +1/+1 counter and it's still pretty strong. 2 mana, 2/2 Flying Vigilance, green with Sentinel. Yet again, you attack, doesn't tap. Growth Cycle. This is actually pretty good. Target creature gets +3/+3 in a turn. It gets an additional +2/+2 for each other growth cycle in your graveyard. That's actually very strong. After the first one, it's automatically 2 mana +5/+5, as long as your graveyard is there and there's another one of these in there, which could be very troublesome later. Rabid Bite. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. A good removal spell. You get like a little Barkhide Golem guy, and you can make it deal 3 damage to something. If it had like a giant growth cycle or giant growth on it, it could deal even more damage. Good way to get rid of a big creature. Green doesn't really have too much removal, so it's pretty good that this has it. Season of the Growth. Season of the Growth enters, it's an enchantment, so it stays on the battlefield. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you get to scry, which means you look at the top card of your library. You can choose whether you want to keep that card and put it on the bottom. And then whenever you cast a spell that targets a creature you control, you draw a card, which is actually very good because we play like giant growths and things like that. So it creates a little draw engine for our green deck, which doesn't have too much in the way of draw. Oaken Form. +3/+3 enchantment, which means it enchants a creature. So you take that, put on a Bark-Eye Troll. This now Bark-Eye Troll becomes a 6/6 if it sells that +1/+1 counter on it. It can be very troublesome to like set up this on turn 2 and then an Oaken Form on turn 3, and then your Bark-Eye Troll is now a 6/6 going into turn 4, even on turn 3. Gnarlback Rhino, 4/4 for 4, trample. So trample means that if it deals damage, if it's a weaker creature that doesn't have a toughness that is more than the power of this creature, it deals that much damage over. So if you block with a 1/1, you still get through for 3. And then whenever you cast a spell that targets this guy, you draw a card. So you have Gnarlback Rhino and Seasoned Growth. If you were to play a Giant Growth on Gnarlback Rhino, you actually draw 2 cards, which is very, very strong. Prize Unicorn, it's a 2 for 4. But when you attack with this, all creatures able to block it do so. So if you want to put this out, if you're trying to finish off your opponent, you have like 4 other creatures and they have a couple trump blockers and you just need to get that damage through, put Prize Unicorn out. Every creature has to pretty much block this, even if it only has 2 toughness, and then all your other damage gets through. It's a good one of, maybe. It's a very situational thing, but it's not terrible. It could be better. Silverback Shaman, 5 mana, 5/4 with trample. And whenever it dies, you draw a card. So another little draw engine, and a 5/5 power creature with trample is pretty good, especially if the creatures your opponent play are very weak. Aggressive Mammoth, 6 mana, 8/8 trample, and all other creatures you control have trample, which is also very good. Because if you had like this Bark-Eye Troll out, now it has trample, and then this Greenwood Sentinel has trample, which creates a lot of like when you drop this on turn 6, it creates a lot of interesting situations for your opponent to have to figure out how to block. You got Gargos, the Vicious Watcher, 6 cost, Vigilance, Hydro Spells cost 4 less to cast, which I don't think is the biggest thing here. I think this is more for the 8/7 body, and then whenever a creature you control becomes a target spell, this guy will fight another target creature you don't control, so you can pretty much eliminate a creature. And this also like plays into like if you Giant Grow something, you can actually fight. This guy will automatically fight another creature. It's not just your opponent's spells that are casted on it. Wake Root Elemental, 6 mana, tap 5, untap target land you control, becomes a 5/5 elemental creature with haste. It's still a land, so you can tap 5 of your green mana, untap 1 of them, and then it's ready to be a 5/5. And it has haste, so it can attack the turn that becomes a creature. Meteor Golem, I guess every starter deck has a Meteor Golem in it. 7 cost, destroy target permanent, not very strong. And then 25 Force. It seems pretty rounded that every deck also has 25 Force to get you started. Now moving on to the blue deck. All right, so let's see what we got on here. A lot of times blue is a counter deck, but this one looks like it has some creatures, so you're not actually playing counters. A little bit of board control, but nothing too crazy. So you got a Spectral Sailor, which is a flash, which means you can play it on your opponent's turn as if it was like an instant spell, and it has flying. So if you go second but want to keep your 1 blue open, you can cast this real quick, and then it can be ready to attack on your next turn. Unsummon, bounces a creature you control or a creature back to its opponent. Return target creature to its owner's hand, so you can target your creatures or their creatures. If you want to get an effect of a creature spell that you played, you can bounce it back. If you just want to get rid of an attacker that maybe you don't have anything to block with, you can play it and bounce it back to your opponent's hand, which is good. Maybe it's something that made them tap all their mana. You bounce it back at the end of their turn or whenever before maybe you go, and then they pretty much wasted their mana. Wall of Runes, and when this enters, 1 mana, 0/4. It's a good blocker very early. You can scry 1, look at top card, decide if you want to keep it or put it on the bottom. You got Brineborn Cutthroat. Whenever you cast a spell during your opponent's turn, +1/+1 counter on this. So you can flash this in too, which is very good. You can flash it in. Following turn, you can flash in something like a Spectral Sailor, and then this guy will get a +1/+1 counter. You may notice also you can play it on summon. It's pretty good. So it can get pretty big pretty quickly. It looks like I only have 1 unlocked. I don't know if you get more as you play more blue. I don't think I played a lot of blue. So sometimes you may see a strong card and you may only have 1 of. Maybe that's one of the ones you want to actually add more of. Sky Theater Strix. It's a 2 cost, 1/2. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this gets +1/+0. So if you were to attack in the air, and your opponent has a flyer as well, you can unsummon it. This now it becomes a 2/2. And so on and so forth, depending on how many instant spells. Or if you're blocking and you need to block a flyer, you can unsummon something. This gets more power, and then it may be able to chump something, block something and kill it as well. Cloud Concealer, 3 cost, 2/1 with flying. And when it enters the battlefield, draw a card, which is pretty good. You can get some card advantage, which is always good. 3 costs for a 2/1 is not bad with flying, and then also get a card out of it is pretty good. Crosslinks, 3 cost, enters the battlefield, tap target creature, opponent controls, that creature doesn't untap. So if they have a really big creature, you play this, you tap it down, it can't untap during its next controller's untap step, so you kind of like prevent a big damage phase coming through, and you get to maybe think of how to get rid of something. Leapfrog has flying as long as you cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn. So like I said, you attack, maybe with this guy out, you drop it on summon, Leapfrog now has flying, creatures away, and then this gets a bonus, and so on and so forth. Sometimes you want to look for like those little combos that kind of make things work. Warden of Evos Isle, 3 cost, flyer. Creatures with flying you cast cost 1 less to cast, which is good. You can take something with the 1 gray, like this guy, and it will become a 1 blue cost for 1/2, which is good. Same thing with this, 2 costs, draw a card, 2/1 flyer. It's only things with flying though, so unfortunately it doesn't get all the cards that you'd probably pick up. Yeah, Winged Words. This spell costs 1 less to cast if you control a creature with flying. You get, again, have a creature with flying on the board. To get a 2 mana, draw 2 cards card. Pretty strong. Dungeon Geist, it's a flyer, so that card that makes flyers cost 1 less. You can play this on turn 3. Flying, when a Dungeon Geist enters the battlefield, tap target creature opponent controls, that creature's untapped, and your controls untap step as long as you control Dungeon Geist. So you may be able to permanently tap down something as long as this is on the board. That's why there's only 1 of. It's pretty strong, so it's really hard to give you multiple copies, especially at the beginning. Air Elemental, 5 mana for 4 flyer. Become a 4/4 flyer if you have the 1 less cost thing. Windstorm Drake, it's a 5 mana 3/3 flyer, but also gives all of your other flying creatures +1/+0. Decent, little expensive, but there's other things to get him out for cheaper. Riddle Master Sphinx, 6 cost, 5/5. When it enters the battlefield, you may return target creature and opponent controls on his hand. So it's a 6 cost, 5/5 with flying, and can bounce something back. And yet again, Meteor Golem, 7 cost, 3/3, destroy target non-land permanent. Not bad. I think this one I definitely don't have any upgrades for, so I think there's more upgrades that you can add to it to make it even better. And then last but not least is red. So we'll double click on that bad boy. So this deck's pretty simple. I think I have all the cards that you can upgrade this deck with. I think the only thing I'm missing now for this one is the cosmetic card I think you get at the end of the tree. So a 1 cost instant speed shock, deals 2 damage to any target. You can play it to destroy a creature, attack, burn opponent's face. Not bad. Chandra's Pyro Helix, 2 mana, instant speed, deal 2 damage divided among as you choose to 1 or 2 targets. So you can do 1 damage to 2 small little 1/1s, or 1 damage to a creature, and 1 damage to the opponent's face. Dreadhorde Arcanist, 2 mana, 1/3. Whenever it attacks, it may cast an instant or sorcery card with converted mana cost less than equal to Arcanist power from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. So like if you played a shock, destroyed something, you then can cast that shock and then play for free. Ember Hauler, 2 cost, 2/2. You can tap 1 to sacrifice him and deal 2 damage to any target. It can be very useful. You could hit an opponent for 2. If they're getting really low, you can then just hit him for 2 in the face, but sacrifice him in the process. Pack Mastiff, 2 cost, 2/2. Also very strong. You can tap 2. Each creature you control named Pack Mastiff gets +1/+0. So if you have a pack of these on the board, in theory, you could pump them for 2, all of them. Get some extra damage in. Chandra's Pitfire, 3 cost, 1/3 flyer. Whenever opponents deal non-combat damage, so if you shock them in the face, this guy gets +3/+0, so it becomes a 4/3 and has flying, which is really strong. Spore Gorger, weird. And it's weird, I guess. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on him. Also strong, so you cast a shock, Chandra's Phoenix, any of those guys, it will get a +1/+1 counter and just gets bigger and bigger the more you play. Chandra's Outrage, 4 cost, 4 damage to target creature and 2 damage to that creature's controller. It's good, but very situational. So if your opponent plays creatures, you always have a target. But if they don't play a lot of creatures, then this card can't be used until they get a creature on the board or something that you can target. And you want it to be the opponent though, because you don't want to deal 2 damage to yourself to kill one of your own creatures. Erratic Cyclops. It's a 0/8 for 4 mana, but whenever you cast an instant or sorcery speed, it gets plus X plus 0, where X is the spell's converted mana cost, so this will be a problem pretty quickly. And it has big butt, so really you just can't get burned itself in return. Incapable Blaze, this spell can't be countered. It deals 6 damage to any target for 6 mana. It's pretty good against blue. I mean, you're not gonna, at the beginning, maybe face a lot of the blue counter decks, but you know, it's good to always have a spell that deals big damage to any target. Shimmying Dragon, 6 cost, 5/5, but whenever it attacks, you can tap 1 red mana, and you can do this as many times as many red mana sources you have open. You can give it more power, so you can deal more damage in the air. Draxkith, Maul of Flames, 7 mana, 7/7 flyer, and then whenever he attacks, you may deal 4 damage to any target and 3 damage to each up to 2 other targets. So you can deal, you know, if they have a couple creatures out, you deal 4 damage to maybe 1 creature, then you deal 3 damage to another creature, and then maybe 3 damage to the face, or vice versa. Maybe you want to do 4 damage to the opponent's face, and then deal 3 damage to each other creature, something like that. And of course, our Meteor Golem in this deck to round it out, and then, you know, destroys permanent that opponent controls. And those are like the basics of the decks that the game starts you off with. If you go back to the mastery that the game also has, you can also go to the mastery tree. You can see, like, for example, you know, we could put more Windstorm Drakes into the deck, as well as a Warden here to give creatures spells with flying that cost 1 less to cast. So you can get some of those. This here gives you a Brineborn, Cutthroat, Dungeon Geist, and Verity Circle. Yet again, it upgrades your deck. Mass Manipulation, gain control of X target, you know, big gain, big, you know, creature like control, very good stuff. Negate and a Riddle Master, and then, you know, just gives you a nice little cosmetic card at the end. White, you can get a Dawn of Hope, you can get an Inspiring Commander again, another Pacifism, Locks on Life Enchanter, another Sarah's Guardian, and another Angelic Reward. And then another cosmetic card. Green, you get another big creature, another Hydra, and another Rabid Bite, and then just a Green with Sentinel cosmetic. And then afterwards, you get you can then unlock each one of these trees. You can do a white-blue deck, a blue-black deck, a black-red deck, a green-red deck, and a white-green deck, which is good. And I mean, if you guys want me to do a breakdown of these decks that you unlock when you complete this mastery tree, let me know down in the comments below. So you've gotten to the end of the video and you're like, wait, Scar, I finished the video you watched and you didn't give us a big secret. Well, here it is. So what you're gonna do is, if you look over in the store, you'll notice that there's an area that says redeem code. With Magic the Gathering, whenever there's a new set, they'll email you a code with whatever email you signed up for, so always be on the lookout for that. If you're new and maybe miss that email, you can always do a quick little Google search, find a website like so. I think this one is actually the top search results. If you type in MTG Arena codes, click it again, go back to this website, go to the redeem code section that I showed you before. You can copy this, Control C, for example, open our client, we hit redeem, enter, boom, code redeemed, and we have ourselves 3 free packs of Allegiance. You keep on going back to the website, like so, over and over again, going through each one of these codes, go back to the game, hit redeem code, and here is a good way to get yourself some free packs without spending a single dime of your own money or your hard-earned gold. Other than that, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you want to see more of these videos, hit the subscribe button so you know when these videos go live. And until next time, guys, Scar out.